You ready to start recording? Okay, so welcome everybody. Tuesday, May 24th meeting of the Economic Development Committee. Thank you for being here. No one has dialed in yet by way of Zoom. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, super. Then let's go ahead and have a roll call of members.
Good evening. For roll call, we have Chair Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Roast, absent, Councilmember Bartoni,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Garetano, Councilmember Hopper, and Councilmember Jaxie, and Councilmember McCutcheon.
Here.
Right, and we have City Administrator Steve Cross, and I'm your meeting recorder, Michelle Scherer.
Thank you. First order of business would be approval of the minutes from the April 26th meeting. Does anybody have any comments regarding the minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Don Bartoni, second. Joe Garetano, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Minutes approved. Thank you. Next would be public comment. Travis, is there anyone that wishes to make public comment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bosworth.
All right, Mr. Bosworth, would you please approach the microphone? And typically you would have 5 minutes.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Thank you.
You're too tall for the mic. Thank you for having me here during the public session. Those of you who don't know, I'm Tony Bosworth with TB Realty, and we're a real estate developer and brokerage. And I've noticed on your agenda, you guys are going to be discussing the goals of the Economic Development Committee. And our company represents the outlots at 109 and Main Street. We have 3 outlots there totaling about 7 acres. And that's part of the property of the 35 acres that made up the old Schneider property, which is now Main Street Crossing. And the Payne Family Homes didn't want to have those lots, and those were zoned workplace, which they're currently still zoned under the master plan. And so the owners retained them. And we've been working very diligently over the years. We've had it listed for 4+ years now. Those outlots have actually been defined from the development since basically the end of 2017. So it's been almost 5 years now that they've been defined and identifiable. And we've had a lot of uses. And I really just wanted to invite, as you guys are going through your discussion on the goals for this committee, if you had a sticker book as a kid or a paintbrush as an adult, what would you paint into those outlots? The outlot starting from north closest to the BP station is 2.35 acres. The one on the south side of Main Street, on the left side as you're going west, that one's about 2.3 acres, 2.25 acres. And the one on the very south is 1.15, which is kind of on the other side of the creek, backing on to the next residential development. And we've had innumerable interest, mostly from restaurants, to be honest. And I think the city's aware of it. We've brought a couple of proposals in over the years, and the bugaboo is always drive-throughs. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but that seems to be our most prevalent interest. And along that same line, the city did a report with Buxton and did a retail leakage and surplus analysis. And high on their list when they did their analysis, short of soft goods like clothing and stuff like that, which is really a department store kind of use, restaurant and service uses, doctor and medical, that kind of stuff, is what's missing in the city. And again, with most of the restaurant uses comes the drive-through, or at least the ability to do drop-off service or curb service, which was frowned on in one of our last proposals we brought about 1.5 years ago. So I just wanted to bring it to light. We have had some more service uses, quasi-medical and one dental. But part of the problem is they only want to have those type of uses typically only want to have about 3 to 4,000 square feet. And to make a 2.5 acre outlot work, even if we split it, you split it in two and need a minimum of 10,000 square foot building. So being able to develop that for those kind of uses, we've had difficulty finding cohesive uses to do in a multi-tenant building. So again, I'm not here to criticize, I understand the desire not to have drive-throughs. It's been, like I say, a sticky wicket with the city since '96, so I fully get it. I think with the pandemic, people have realized that things have changed a little bit. I don't know if that's changed the elected officials' opinions on those at all. I think the public's opinion has changed on it. Hopefully either via the planning department or via the guidance from this board, maybe it can be redressed again. And if you had any other uses, like I said, I'm a dumb real estate broker when it comes to that building or that property. And sometimes we don't know things, and sometimes you guys have insight on users, whether it's neighbors that want to open a small business, whether it's an insurance office, something like that. Those are service uses that are prevalent in communities like ours. So again, it's more of an invitation if you guys, when you're going through your goals and objectives, keep it in mind. They're the kind of the front door to the west side of town center, and want to have something happen there. And the other big thing is the connectivity with Main Street down here, down in front of City Hall. I have the most frontage between Etherton Road.
Tony, we have about 10 seconds left.
Okay. We're hopefully going to work on the adjacent piece next to the park here shortly, but hopefully we can work with you guys on getting that connection made, which will basically blend the rest of town center as we get closer here shortly. So again, just invite your input either directly, and staff has my contact information and my signs up there with my website and phone number on it. So anything you can suggest or invite, I certainly welcome. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much.
No, sir.
I have to get used to the button on the microphone. This brings us up to discussion items ready for action. First item up is the B&B Theater Movie Festival proposal, which we discussed at the last meeting. If there's no further comments, everybody had a chance to comment on that discussion last time around. I'll entertain a motion. Councilmember McCutcheon.
I move that the B&B Theater Movie Festival proposal be postponed indefinitely.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second, to make a quick comment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I did follow up and try to get input from the movie theater. So I spoke with Mr. Cohn, and their biggest priority right now is trying to hire people. So that's what they need to focus on. And they're looking to make investments in that theater, hopefully very soon, that will improve the experience. So I will second that at this point. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Dodwell.
Before I lose it in my head, after Mr. Garantano made his comment, I'm wondering if we may put down on a future discussion what we could do to entice teenagers to perhaps find employment within the city of Wildwood, or something along those lines. We've got several different types of restaurants, et cetera. And if people are having trouble finding help, we've got 35,000 residents that I would hope we could get some help for those businesses somehow, either by us promoting hire locally or something along those lines.
So, thank you. I think at the last one, Steve, you were just going to talk to them. Like, how did that conversation go?
With the chair's permission, several of the this committee members spoke to me after the meeting, and it was determined to hold off until this committee made a little further determination of where we wanted to go with that. So I was asked to just kind of hold off on having that conversation, and that's what I did. So I have not reached out to Mr. Cohn simply because it was not, we weren't quite sure, at least as it was communicated to me, and the direction I was given was to let's see where that, where this proposal goes.
Okay, I might be a little confused. I mean, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with what Deborah did, but I don't understand why what's the proposal? What's the proposal we're postponing? Okay, so, and just with all due respect.
No,
to
that's all right.
Deborah, with like, why are you making the motion to postpone it indefinitely?
Because at the last meeting, there were several concerns raised regarding the proposal because it involved getting involved with the B&B movie theater. And there was concern that we would be perceived as interfering with their business and the conducting of their business.
Okay. We had a motion and passed a motion to discuss it with them, though. We didn't, so I'm just saying, we made a motion and passed the motion to have a discussion. So we'll just say moving forward, if we're gonna make motions in here, the side conversations can be had. I'm not saying not to have side conversations, but they shouldn't trump what any committee does. So.
No, I agree. Thank you.
I concur with that as well. I don't see any reason we couldn't request that whoever is speaking with the group discuss how we can help promote town center and bring more business into the community. That was the purpose of the discussion, was my understanding, was to learn from many of our business people around town center what we need to do to help make their business survive.
No, and nothing prevents us from doing that. We can still have that discussion with a wide variety of the businesses here within town center. City Administrator Cross.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regards to the specific item under Ready for Action, B&B Theater Movie Festival proposal, what the committee had asked me to do was to approach Mr. Cohn about that specific proposal, about a movie festival proposal.
Right.
Only that, and not about how we can enhance downtown or anything. It was specifically about that movie proposal. And I'll repeat what I said just a minute ago, with regard to that specific proposal, I was asked to just hold off until we could have further discussion among this committee in terms of, do we really want to follow up on that one specific about bringing a movie festival. So as long as there was still a question mark, I was asked to hold off on doing that, approaching Mr. Cohn until that was discussed further here at this committee, only about that proposal.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, just put on our Mr. Bartoni's question. We did discuss this pretty much at the last meeting. We discussed it previously. And the whole idea was previous chair's purpose in doing this, was my understanding, was to financially assist B&B. And that was decided, Mr. Cross. You're shaking your head. Correct. And at the same, we also discussed about using public funds for a private purpose and for one business and to assist them. And then the discussion came about, well, how do we even know they want our assistance? Because that was part of the reason Mr. Cross was going to talk to them. And I think that was part of the reason Mr. Darren Connell spoke with them. So we don't even know that. And that was the whole purpose of this festival, was to assist that business. So we have discussed this.
Councilmember Garrett.
Yeah, and I could elaborate a little bit more from my position. And I did not speak with him in reference to the proposal. My conversation was more of just how things are going, what's happening there. So I think that, you know, for us to consider any proposal, it's the next item on the agenda that I would really like to have the conversation as we as a group figure out what goals we have, and then we can determine what work supports those goals. So I would postpone it, and, you know, it may be that we end up coming out of the next conversation item that we do something like this, and this could be an activity, but I think it's important for us to align first on the goals so that we're all on the same page as to where we want to focus our limited resources and energy around. And, you know, just back to the movie theater proposal, nothing prohibits the movie theater from doing their own thing. In fact, Pasiglia's is having a fall festival where they're going to have vendors at their location, and they're doing it without the city's support. So, you know, I think there's an opportunity to first, let's see what we want to focus on, what kind of activity, what kind of goals that we want to measure on. So that Don, do you have anything? You're nodding your head in disagreement.
If I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm reading this from the minutes, and this is how I remember it also, and somebody can correct me, but it's on video probably also. There was a motion for further investigation with the movie theater management and asked the city administrator, Steve Cross, to speak with them about the topic. Nothing about funding, nothing about helping, nothing. I'm just saying any committee that passes a motion should follow through with that motion, and it should not be decided outside of a committee whether to move forward with that or not. This has nothing to do with the movie theater. This is procedure, and that is out of procedure.
Well, I'm finished with my comments there. So. Okay.
Sure, Mr. Gross and has his hand up.
All right. Councilmember Prost.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
You're on mute.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Wildwood is going to have new internet, but I still have the old internet. I'm not opposed to postponing this, really under the premise for this business, whether it's one business, 10 businesses, or every business in Wildwood. Somehow we have to figure out how to support them. I'm not opposed to it. I think the critical path here that we sort of got off track on is that we really never discussed this with the theater. And I think the theater needs to be the lead, not the city. So it's one of these things I think we got to circle back on maybe and look at, but I think we just started down the path maybe differently than I would have done. So I think postponing it is good. We can always reintroduce another action or initiative, if it really fits. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hopper.
I'm going to kind of go along a little bit here with Councilmember Gross' comments. I think maybe an error in this, maybe slightly tying it in. I understand it's a movie festival, right? But having it so anchored around the theater that it seems as though it's come across as if it is purely for the theater, where that it's take B&B out of it. It's a movie festival. Yes, we're fortunate enough that we have a really nice theater in town center that could show the movies, but there's a lot of other businesses that could be involved outside of that to portray however we wanted to go about doing that. I think having it so wrapped up in this is a B&B movie theater festival. It's not. It would be a City of Wildwood movie festival. B&B can show the movies if they want to. We can talk to them about that. But I think, having it so intertwined with each other, I know it logically makes sense that it's a movie festival, you got to have the theater involved, but it's one thing to approach them to see if they would want to be on board and be involved with it. But it seems like we're having a conversation that hinges on the theater. That I think that's kind of causing a lot of contention. I would say that I don't necessarily disagree with the postponement. I don't know that I would say indefinitely. I would say maybe it's a postponement as we get to the conversations, like, again, step B, figuring out the specific goals on the committee as it stands now and wants to move forward. And then this becomes back an action item after we have established the goals. Then we can have a conversation about how this type of event would align to the new goals that we have. Maybe would take a different form. Maybe it is out once we determine different goals, but I think we're kind of in a weird place with it where I don't know an indefinite postponement would be in place, but I definitely think let's figure the goals out. Then let's circle back to this to see exactly what form this needs to take, removing the theater from being like the cornerstone to the whole thing. If it's a festival is one thing, but we're making it the B&B Theater Festival, and that's not really that's not really our place to do that. If B&B wants to do that, let them go do it. But if we want to have a movie festival, we can do that. It's just not going to be the B&B movie festival. It would be a Wildwood movie festival.
So we have Councilmember McCutcheon.
Given the discussion, I will be willing to amend my proposal to just proposal instead of indefinite. If that is appropriate,
So postponement until after goals are established?
just postponement.
You want to postpone to a particular date?
Can we take a look at it again in September? So I'm thinking it might be nice to, I'm sorry, I'm just
No, that's all right.
talking right on in. It might be nice to put together some, along those lines in the winter time so that we get people out here after Christmas to check out some of the businesses afterward. They can tie into it if they want to do so as well.
So we could say for 6 months.
Yeah, like table it until September.
Yeah, I second it and I'm fine with it if the
Okay.
maker's fine.
So we have a motion to delay discussion of this until September.
I said December. Is that 6 months?
That would put us in November, right? We're May 24th.
September, October, November.
I mean,
September meeting to the September meeting.
So September meeting,
Yeah,
okay,
just do
If I
September.
can make a recommendation.
All right.
September meeting.
okay. So the motion and the second is to delay discussion on this, and we will discuss it again in September.
Correct.
Change the title to movie festival.
But that would be. the next
We can address
discussion.
that after the postpone.
Okay, all right. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed on principle.
Okay. Abstentions? None. Okay, motion carries. Discussion will be in September. Oh, sorry, Larry.
I was, postpone's fine.
Okay. All right. Okay, so next item up, B, discussion of goals for Economic Development Committee. Councilmember Dodwell.
Sorry to interrupt, since I didn't get this until this afternoon. I wanted to know whether we wanted to do an update on business changes in Wildwood first before we figure out what goals we need to have, or whether that would have any impact at all or not. Don't know.
So would you, Councilmember Hopper?
I'm gonna actually piggyback on what he's saying. I thought there's. I also apologize, had a last minute ability, I'm sorry. Apologize, also had a last minute ability to kind of look at those and review them, so having maybe an opportunity to digest them a little more
No,
with
that's
some other
okay.
discussion,
That's right. Does anybody object to us then going immediately into the for information and the updates? Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, I think it's worth a discussion on what our goals are before we decide how we want to move forward.
No, we're
I
not.
think,
We're not going to skip over the discussion of the goals. We were just going to get the update from
Okay,
Steve
got it.
Cross and then
Sorry.
come back to those.
okay, that's fine.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. So City Administrator Cross, if you could give us an update then on under information on points A, B, and C.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be happy to. The committee, excuse me, I'm sorry. With regards to North Point development, we are now seeing some significant movement. After many weeks of talking with them and trying to get information, and we were going down parallel paths, you may recall from our previous discussions. Our planning department was working with their folks in terms of trying to get a site development plan and getting some of those details worked out. In concurrent with that, the city attorney and myself were working with the folks in terms of trying to get to a point where we could have some information to initially discuss with the mayor at his request, to find out if there was any meat on the bone, so to speak, about whether this was something that the city wanted to pursue or not. And we just wrapped up those discussions with the mayor at the end of last week. There are definite advantages to the city to do this, at least initially. The mayor asked us to pursue a couple other questions, which we have done. And we had yet another conversation with the mayor today. And we're at a point now where the mayor asked me to reach out to North Point and set up a negotiating session, which is to occur next Wednesday, assuming that North Point. I sent an email to their principals and asked to have them come here. And so the mayor, our city attorney, and myself would be sitting down with them and at least opening up the discussions with regards to some of the information that they provided us, financial information. As you know, they are part of being able to bring this development to conclusion requires some abatement of taxes. And we have to see how that works and so forth. So we will also include bond counsel, the city's bond counsel, in those negotiations to ensure that we're able to do that. So the point is, we have made significant progress to the point where we are within a week of at least sitting down and having an initial negotiating session with them. Before I move on, I'm happy to answer any questions regard to North Point, Mr. Chair.
Are you making plans as part of this negotiation with North Point to come back to this committee or the council as a whole in a closed session meeting to discuss anything before it would go to a final vote with council, so that we can have understanding of what the perspectives were in those discussions?
Yes, the latter, which would be this is an opening salvo, if you will, in terms of sitting down and seeing if what we want out of the deal is palatable to them and so forth. So once we get some of those details fleshed out, then yes, we would come back and present that to council. And not just, say, okay, now it's time, here it is, let's vote on it. No, we wouldn't do that. It won't, the next step would be then to go to the council, and yes, that would be a closed session discussion. Mm-hmm.
Next up would be on business changes in Wildwood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. A lot of stuff going on. You've read most of it in my weekly report. Micro Meadows, I guess it was Thursday, I think we had a ribbon cutting ceremony. It was raining cats and dogs that particular day, but it was well attended. It's been a pleasure working with Chris and Matt Loveland. They have a nice little business there. So I would encourage you to stop in if you haven't done so already. Buy one of their salads. They're yummy. They're very good. They're superfood, as they call it, and so forth. So there's a process to how they grow their greens and so forth. But anyway, so they're up and running now. So that's a good thing. The next ribbon cutting ceremony is Lucky Dog Central. And Lucky Dog Central is over on Manchester Road. And that ribbon cutting ceremony is scheduled for June the 3rd. Unfortunately, I will be out of town, so I won't be able to attend that. But I'm working with the West County Chamber, and they're the ones that bring the big scissors and the ribbon and do all the media and so forth. So that will be good. And you've all heard about, it's dog friendly and dog treats and dog paraphernalia, ultimately to have a cafe or something out back. So we're working through some of those details in terms of how does it meet code and that, because we have gotten some feedback from some of the residents in the area that have expressed some concern. So Mr. Vunich and I are working through that. I also have mentioned that I am working with the owners of what they are trying to bring to the city is a whiskey and cigar bar, and they want to occupy the space that is previously occupied by Pure by Jen. I had a conversation with the real estate broker who manages that building, and they have gotten feedback from the neighbors on both sides, the proposed neighbors who have expressed concern about smoke issues and so forth. But I do know, in speaking with the potential or the owners of this potential business, they have a high-end smoke system. So I've asked them to go and at least have an initial conversation with the neighbors. I've offered, to be involved in that if they want me to be involved. So they are looking at alternatives. They still want to be in Wildwood, but if the Pure by Jen doesn't work, they're looking at others. But that particular space was the right size, the right layout, that it would work. So I haven't given up hope. I'm an internal optimist. So we'll see if we can't get that done. I also noted in my report that I was approached by a lady who is running a business out of her home, a home-based business, Blissful Candles. And so her sales right now are primarily through internet sales, but she wants to have a storefront. So I'm working with her and giving her some ideas that not only here, but throughout Wildwood, with other places that might fit, 1,200 square foot business, that type of thing. So she already is Wildwood residents selling, and we'll see if we can't get her set up to have a storefront. So we're working on that. Mr. Vunich and I are also working with folks that want to take over, reopen the space previously occupied by, and I think it's pronounced Imogene's. I don't know if it's Imogene's or Imogene's, but I'll say, I think it's Imogene's, but what do I know? Anyway, so, but anyway, historic building. For those of you that don't know, there's quite a, we used to be in that building, City Hall, many years ago, back in the 2000s. So that's an old rickety building, but it's got a lot of character to it. Sometimes it's like being in the fun house at Holiday Hill, for those of you who can remember that. And that's probably just Katie and I. They're old enough to. But anyway, they're talking about a bakery and a retail space. So we have to figure out, if, particularly with the bakery, if that will work with the current zoning of that building. So don't know yet, but we're working with them to see how that works out. And then lastly, and I haven't heard from this gentleman, and I think I reached out to him about 3 weeks ago to see where he stood. This is the exercise coach. And I had mentioned, and he was looking initially at a May opening, but that wasn't going to happen. His build out wasn't going quite as fast as he wanted, but he's looking at an early June opening. And so I've made a note, because I thought about it the other night laying in bed, and didn't make a note to myself. But when I was writing the notes for tonight's update to the committee, it reminded me that I do need to reach out to that gentleman and see where that stands. So that's a new business that in fact is coming, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks that we'll have an opening and a ribbon cutting ceremony for that gentleman as well. That's a lot of stuff going on. I gave that update, the mayor and I, when we attended the West County Chamber of Commerce luncheon, and you're allowed a few minutes to give a brief update on some of the businesses that are open, and so we covered that. So kind of happy about things that are going on. Before I move on to the next one, are there any questions or anything else I can answer for anyone?
Yeah, Steve, I heard that the Chinese restaurant next door to Schnucks, Yancheng, that they're closing on June 15th. And apparently they have some lease issues, also reaching retirement age. So I just heard that. I don't know that it's official, but heard it from enough sources to know that might be coming. And so maybe just put it on your radar, Well,
thanks for the heads up. I appreciate that.
And I noticed Electro Savings is now up for lease. It's the bank building close to Pierside Lane. So that's something we'll want to keep an eye on, or at least be aware of what kind of activity in addition to the Jack in the Box. Those are two outlots in that area there.
The electro savings, and I'm glad that you brought up both those, and thank you, particularly with the Ching. I was not aware of that. The electro savings, I was aware of that. And in fact, a real estate broker reached out to the mayor and I recently and mentioned that there was someone who wanted to open up a financial branch. Didn't name the name or anything like that, but and so I made a list of the possibilities in terms of the bank building, PNC bank building here in town center, electro savings, and I think on my list there's one other, I think. But I'm going to circle back and say we've got couple open locations. So thank you for that reminder. And one final thing that I did not mention, and that does, and you mentioned about Jack in the Box. I think I've put in my report that there is one broker. He's based in New York. I think actually he's been trying to market that. Right now, I've been asked to reach out to them and try to get the folks that are listing that property to clean it up. It's gotten a little ragged again, and so I will be reaching out to them. Hopefully tomorrow. Today I was going to, but today was a bad day. But hopefully, get them to cut the grass and kind of clean it up a little bit. But the last time I was approached, I've been approached now by that same gentleman 3 times about various businesses, and none of which are suitable for Wildwood, particularly the last one, which is a adult related store. So we'll ultimately be able to get that property under contract somewhere along the line, but we got to get it looking a little bit better. So.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Bartoni.
So I'm sure that where the old Pure by Gen was, there's concern with the smoke, like just infiltrating the neighbors. So I don't know if it's still there, but there was a cigar bar over it's probably Chesterfield. It's on Olive, probably, well, it would be west side of 141. It's kind of over in those areas where those 2 Phillips 66 stores are. There used to be a cigar bar in a strip mall there. If it's still there, that might be worth reaching out to their neighbors to see if they can tell the smoke penetrates the walls, because I'm sure that's what they're trying to avoid. So I don't know if it's still there or not, but it could be like a positive testimonial if it works.
Yes, that's a good suggestion. The problem here is that the initial was about smoke penetrating into the neighbors, to the point when the neighbors' leases were drawn up with the building owner. There is specific language in there that prevents certain types of businesses from going into Pure by Gen. And I said, why would you do that? They said, because we needed to get rental income from the property. So when I said I wanted to get involved, I wanted to see if there was a way to amend those leases and get the folks to understand about the smoke non-penetration, if you will, if there is such a term. But right now that means amending 2 leases, if not 3, because that area is surrounded. So it's an uphill battle. But your point is well taken. And yes, if we get to that point where I can get the neighbors to, understand that and especially armed with information about other neighbors, then that might help. So thank you.
All right, Mr. Status update on the open position.
I would love to. Committee, we now have an economic development / communications manager. I have hired a gentleman, and I am extremely excited to bring him on board. His name is Thomas Lee, and Thomas Lee will be starting on the 14th of June. Thomas Lee comes from a high-end digital marketing firm. He has public relations experience. He has marketing experience. He has sales experience. He has all the experience to be the salesman for the city, to go out and interact, because this is what he has been doing in his role. He's dealt with businesses. He is I don't know his age, but he's a young guy. He lives currently in St. Charles. He and his wife would like to live in Wildwood. They think that that is in their future plans. But so now that I'm bringing this gentleman on board, he will be starting the day after I get back. So we negotiated a date. He wanted to take a week off to go visit his brother and nieces and nephews in North Carolina. So he's going to take a week off from when he leaves his prior business and starts with us. But I mean, I told him, come prepared, you know, because we're going to get immersed in economic development to the nth degree, from plans to and I think, you know, hopefully we won't get too far in this, because I certainly want this gentleman to be involved in goals, and he brings a wealth of experience just business wise. For a young guy, he's got a lot of experience. So I'm excited. So anyway, good news.
Congratulations. That is good news.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I consider us blessed, the city, you know, because there weren't a lot of resumes. There weren't a lot of people out there. It's the way of the world these days. There just isn't. I don't know why, but anyway, you know, well, anyway, I won't go into details, but I'm excited. And you should all be too, because we've got somebody that's going to really help this committee take the city to the next level. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any final comments or questions for Mr. Cross before we leave the information update? Okay, so that brings us back to the under ready for action, letter B, discussion of goals for the Economic Development Committee. I've had some conversations with a couple of you, but this ties into the fact that it doesn't look like at this point in time we'll have any meetings scheduled for June or July. So we'll get into a discussion later on if we want to try to change when we have these meetings scheduled. But that period between now and the time we have our next meeting, I'll get with each one of you individually to just get input regarding what you think the goals and responsibilities of this committee should be. But that's just a sort of a follow-up to what we'll discuss here tonight. So this is really open discussion for anybody that's got any ideas that they want to float in front of the rest of the committee members. Councilmember Hopper.
I actually kind of have a little bit of a question and related to goals, I guess, as this comes through, and I guess it will display a little bit of my ignorance in this, but what really was the main charter or purpose or goal of this committee when it was originally formed? Like when this committee was created, what was that purpose that would drive these particular goals? Because these goals are fine. They're just kind of general and generic. And I feel like it's, what are we really looking to accomplish here? Is it drive business to the city? Is it to drive people to shop in businesses to the city? Is it to get people to come build their business in the city? So I guess for me, I'm just looking at what's the overall purpose that we're looking to serve with this committee, or direction we're trying to move forward, because I think that drives every goal that we have underneath it. And I don't know that I've seen any place where it's very clear.
So I think you've done a great job of summarizing probably about half a dozen questions that probably most of the members of this committee have. So thank you for that. Councilmember Dodwell, did you have your hand up?
I just wanted to indicate that I think the primary goal from my perspective is that in order for Wildwood to continue to provide the services, the parks, the activities, etc., we need to have an income stream. The majority of our income comes from sales tax. Correct me if I'm wrong. We've got a great staff that is providing us with grants and going out and seeking new ways and different resources that we can utilize as well, which I think is fantastic. But I kind of thought that the purpose of this committee was to help take the previous, what I'd call boilerplate kind of, this is what economic development is supposed to do, that we got from the consulting firm externally. And after having Julian here for the years that he was here, sitting down as a group representing our citizens and determining, okay, how do we fill in those blanks? How do we get it more detailed? Like you were speaking of, where are we missing certain businesses? How do we connect Main Street with where some of our other business locations are within the town? And then lastly, how do we support those individuals who are brave enough, smart enough, and determined enough to open a business out here in Wildwood? Because I think it takes a lot of guts to run your own business. It's not an easy thing to do. And so from my perspective, that's what the goals of our committee need to be, is how do we remove obstructions for those who want to run a business in Wildwood? How do we encourage businesses to at least take a look, but hopefully decide to be here? And then what kind of resources in the form of either retail or white collar businesses or manufacturing business? I think we need to be open-minded to a lot of things. Do I want it to look like the Indianapolis or the Indiana side of Chicago? No, of course not. But I think we're a little remiss if we close our eyes to this committee lining out, this is the only kind of business that we can have in here, and not keep an open mind as a city for both our citizens and those who are running a business. So I kind of went off there, sorry.
No. Councilmember Brost has his hand up, but before we go to Councilmember Brost, Councilmember Bartoni, did you have your hand up earlier? Okay, all right, thank you. Councilmember Brost.
Yeah, I'd like to, I think we definitely need to make sure we're all on the same page. I mean, even the B&B type discussion, what was discussed at the last meeting and what followed up to some degree, I think has, maybe the follow-up has something to do with just we're not all on the same page. So I think we all need to get on the same page. My other comment is that one of the items that I think has really had a negative impact on Wildwood, which is maybe obvious to all of us, is our internet. And I do think that with the economic development and making sure that the surrounding areas where people might look to either work from their home or work in our area, is that we really do need to make sure that we reach out and effectively communicate that we have an internet solution that's underway. And specifically, knowing that the service is definitely reaching a particular area. I know Steve's probably been buried with this. I've got one request in. It's been over a month. I don't know. But if there's people that are looking to know if we have internet, I think it's critical that we able to positively respond that we do have a solution for them. So I think let's not underestimate the value that, all that money the city's spending on internet to further help the economic development, because I hear it all the time. And whether you have a business that's based in taking retail space in Wildwood, as a business owner, it's not 8 to 5. Then I would come home and work in the evening. So having internet, whether it's at the business or at the home, is essential. So I think it's our investment in internet is an investment in economic development. And we need to make sure we leverage that in letting people know that's coming. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Garitano.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll opine on the goals piece because we have 4 clear economic development goals in our city's master plan. And the plan was last updated in 2016. So we need to make sure that whatever we do aligns to those 4 goals and we don't deviate. Otherwise, the master plan really should be updated. And, the 4 goals, just to summarize, I mean, 1 is designate and promote the town center as the city's core commercial and business area for development. Number 2, retention of current businesses and development of new enterprises should be a priority to all staff, boards, commissions, and elected officials of the city. 3, allocate funding for capital improvement projects in town center area, focusing on expansions, upgrades to the current street utility networks, open space, park, trail development. And then just 4, develop strategies for the city so tourists, recreational enthusiasts, residents of St. Louis will recognize it as a regional destination point. And when I reflect back, there's been some really good stuff that's happened over the past several years that totally aligns with these goals here. There's also some where I do see some prime opportunities, like, number 2, retention and development should be a priority to all staff, boards, commissions, elected officials. There's a lot of folks that are new in some of our boards and commissions, planning and zoning, and other areas where they provide input and make serious decisions. So, I think we have an opportunity to make sure they're aware of, of this specific goal right here. And I love the fact that there's 4 simple goals. I really don't want us to get into, in my opinion, boiling the ocean, trying to do everything, just throw everything at it. Like we should align on what we want to do, because in my opinion, Wildwood is a very special place. We are unique. There are cities that we're surrounded by that have a different outlook on things. But when you look at commercial development, you only go down the road and you see many new businesses that have popped up almost overnight. A new bank, a new coffee shop, a car wash, restaurants. And yet in Wildwood, the last time a new commercial building went up was in 2008. That was the movie theater. And so you look at it and you say, are we doing a good job or what? And, if you measure it just on that, obviously something is just not working right? And we have this town center. When I moved to Wildwood in 2008, I really thought, within a couple of years, the town center where you see the field would be developed. I just said, it's got to be a couple of years that we'll be walking to more ice cream shops and things like this. And yet we're in 2022 and the grass is still growing. So there's something we got to figure out that maybe we're just not doing. And I'm excited to be on this committee, because maybe we got to look a little bit too outside of the ordinary of what we've done. I think we do a phenomenal job for retention. Julian did a good job maintaining relationships. He worked with those folks that had businesses and they like him. And we do events in the city, whether you call them economic development or you call them Celebrate Wildwood. We do a lot of stuff that brings in people. So the new development is really where there's opportunity as far as my opinion goes. So I'm just giving you my thoughts, my 2 cents, but I think as a group we can all come up with some stuff that really, some clear activities, actions that align up to these goals.
So Councilmember Hopper and I are two of the newer people on City Council and on this committee, so we appreciate the update from the veterans that are on the committee. So that being said, Councilmember McCutcheon.
I agree with Mr. Garitano. We do have the goals. Sorry. We do have the goals in our master plan. I was on that master plan update committee. There was a lot of work put into that, especially by the Economic Development Task Force. I know at one time we had an economic development manual that kind of laid that out. I don't know if it's still laying around somewhere, Steve. Okay, but above and beyond what Mr. Garantano has discussed and some other people up here, we need input from our residents. We need to know, what are our residents going to support? You know, what kind of businesses would they like to see here and actually come up and use them? That is one of our greatest purposes in the city of Wildwood, and that is to serve our residents, and the residents make the city. So I think early on, we should get a survey out to residents. Of course, we have to know what our goals are in order to do that. But I think first and foremost, we need input from our residents.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Cross.
I raised my hand, but I will defer first to Councilmember Hopper. All right, thank you, sir. First of all, I just kind of wanted to give you a different perspective from where I sit. First of all, Councilmember McCutcheon is absolutely right in terms of getting feedback from the residents. That is one of the next agenda items on the admin PW committee that Mr. Garantano chairs. So I'm sorry?
I sent him an email on that.
So that if you'll recall then that on our proposed dates of doing things, that was a May, June summer activity where we would start developing that survey. The last survey was done, we think in about 2015 or something like that. It was very comprehensive, almost too much. So we're going to try to boil that down into some critical things and get feedback from the residents. You're absolutely right. As it relates to this committee, getting feedback from businesses and focusing on that is extremely important, to the point where I've been questioned by folks outside the city, at least our group here, about why we don't have business owners on this committee. And that's a valid question and something that we should think about. When I was evaluating what I wanted to do with that open position, and as you all know, I took my time, but that was intentional. It wasn't dragging my feet. It was gathering input about what we wanted to do, because I believe, and you all are kind of talking around it, is we need to understand, all of us, what economic development is in the city of Wildwood. It is not economic. We can't go and look at the plan of what economic development is in St. Peter's or St. Charles or Ellisville or anything like that. We need to know what we want our city to be. And it's far different. I will tell you, you all probably saw the article that came out, and I heard, Bob Nation talked about it at the mayor and city administrator luncheon a week ago. They got all kinds of things going on. Mr. Garantano just alluded to it. What's going on in Chesterfield? What's going on in Ellisville? And especially in Chesterfield with the new hotel, the new this, the new that. I got a little jealous. I'm going, man, God, that'd be so cool to be involved in that stuff. But then my wife and I went and took a drive out in the MG last Sunday and going, this is Wildwood. This is what Wildwood is. Wildwood is not hotels and all that stuff. It's a whole different model. Okay. But that doesn't mean that we don't have economic development here. Ms. Dodwell, you have mentioned a couple of times, well, maybe we need to have a building, where we attract a CPA firm. What I have struggled with over the last few years, and what Julian struggled with, is there was not a clear direction of what we wanted to do. Let me tell you what's going on right now in the city in terms of economic development. We have the Prime Place going up. Okay. Hopefully they're going to break ground here sometime soon. Okay. But okay, so now we've got a 5-story building with retail on the bottom and 4 floors of high-end living space. Okay, that's economic development. We have the Reserve that one of these days the council is going to, settle on it, and whether they're going to build 140 homes there. That's economic development. We have the Village Green. That is going to be the focal point of this city going forward for years and years and years and years to come. That's going to bring people. Okay, we have North Point. And I hope to heck that we're going to be able to reach agreement and get North Point developed. Okay, that is 2.5 million square feet, 1,300 jobs. That is going to bring economic development to the area. We have Main Street. We have Mr. Boz sitting there. So we need to extend Main Street. Once we do that, and once we get Village Green, and once we have the retail fronting, Main Street going all the way out to 109, and Wildcrest is a proposal that has come before the city in terms of building some living space in that area down there. That's true economic development. Those are things that hopefully are coming. But at the end, what I am hoping is that when we all start talking about these goals, it'd be real helpful for me and my economic development manager. What is it we want to do? Do you want us to go after ice cream shops? Do we want a CPA firm? Do we want, we'll go after, and I'll see if I can open up a branch of one of the big CPA firms. Right now, we don't know what that direction is. And I know with this makeup of this committee now that we're going to have some really, really good direction. I'm excited now that once we decide what we want to do, but the basic question that we have to answer is, what is economic development in our city? And once you answer that, what you want to do and what is not economic development, and as you guys know, I'm preaching the choir. I know that there's so much that is out of our control, because there's other areas of the council, and that we have other committees that it doesn't matter what we want, because it's hard to get development in our city. I can't tell you how many times I heard it just this week by somebody saying, they just don't come to Wildwood because of the hoops they have to jump through. It's, so the council as a whole, all the committees, everybody, just like that plan there that says all committees, everybody involved needs to work towards that common goal. And we can say we want to do this, but if right now there is an absolute, it's a hard no in terms of drive-throughs, we can sit here all day and say we want to bring in a Culver's or a Freddy's or something like that. You got to go to Ellisville. I will get off my soapbox.
No, thank you. I'm going to circle back to Councilmember Hopper.
No. I have a bit of a fractured, line of thought here. So it's kind of a few major points that I'm kind of getting from here, and I'll just kind of get them out and let you guys bring it up. So a few key things of that, I think, to what Mr. Cross was saying, is really getting a direction of the overarching focus of what we're looking for. Is it retaining business? Are we looking, is economic development in our eyes, how do we make Wildwood more attractive for people to move to? And that in turn drives economic development. That's a totally different philosophy than how do we just get businesses here? But I think with that, we need to put in a plan that this is what we are going to do and what we aren't going to do. What are our guardrails that says, well, we're not going to spend money on a particular business. This is what we kind of have said as our safe zone to come in and do. But I think we need to have that fairly outlined. Obviously, there are extenuating circumstances to everything, but we think we need to have some clear lines drawn of saying okay, this is what we're going to discuss and do and what we want to work with. So then as we're going through and talking about ideas and talking plans, we can rule out a lot of stuff really quickly to say, we can't do that because we've already established that that's not something this committee wants to go into and do. So I think having those very clear guardrails is going to be a key thing as we start to plan here. The second thing that I had was, and it stuck with me last meeting when Councilmember Cushion had talked about us being a bedroom town, right? We had, this is typically people come here and you have your home and then you drive to work. But I think with the transition of things, and to Councilmember Bro's point, developing internet here, a lot more companies are offering the opportunity to work from home. Wildwood is a fantastic city. I think we all would say that. It can be very attractive for somebody who has a work from home opportunity once we have, reliable internet there that opens up that, and we need to kind of be prepared to be proactive in that environment. To be prepared for that as it comes in. The last thing I had, sorry, I know it's fractured across the board here, was, and again, it's kind of along the same lines as Mr. Cross has said, is we really have to involve the businesses and getting their feedback. It kind of brought up a little bit when we were talking about B&B, and we're like, we're all talking about B&B Theater and the status of their business and what they're doing, and we weren't even talking to them. It was just like, oh, we had heard they weren't doing great, and now we're having a full hour-long conversation about the state of their business. So I would highly recommend that we find a way to heavily outreach to businesses, try to schedule times for them to come in, whether it's a reconfiguration of the committee to have people from business on here, or at least saying, we're going to give everybody an opportunity to come in and have a one-on-one conversation with the committee and open up a public forum to say, hey, we'll open up slots. Come let us know what your frustrations are, because we need to make sure that we're getting that from them. But it's got to come from us reaching out to try to drag it in. That's what I got.
Thank you. Councilmember Dodwell.
I was just going to piggyback on the businesses coming into us, and I'd say before COVID hit, we had already started for about 8 months, maybe. We would have, Julian would reach out to a business in his group of contacts that he had here and say, do you want to come in and tell us what your business needs are? And we would also, as a committee, request, okay, we want somebody from retail and we want somebody from professional, like a doctor's office. We had the dentist, or no, not the dentist, the eye doctor. One, I can't remember who, but we had several different individuals come in and basically teach this committee what it is that businesses really could use, are looking for from the city, which was a big plus. And it helps educate all of us on what different types of businesses need. So I would love to be able to get that back going again, or we'd have 1 or 2 businesses here per.
Councilmember Garitano.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I heard a really good discussion. I think it is just so good that we've had this really healthy, candid discussion, and I love that we're trying to get aligned. Really, we need to do that. And Nathan, the guardrails analogy, that's good. We need to know where we want to focus and what we don't. And the mention of the survey, yeah, we need input. I think it will be very helpful from a residential business perspective, because I do think one opportunity that we have as a city is we have to fix our reputation when it comes to how welcoming we are to business community, the types of businesses that we want in Wildwood. I heard that. I went into one time a restaurant, and a business person told me that they were, business that they work with in Wildwood. They basically said, why is it so difficult to work in Wildwood? And so when you have enough people going around saying that, it's not a good thing. We need to change that image, but still preserve to keep the Wildwood the way it is. But certainly we want to work with people like that. When we talk about our town center area, and the people that live in the town center, they came for this kind of life. They want to be able to walk. They want to be able to take Main Street, come into the rest of the town center. I can't tell you how long I've been hearing that. And it's great because Wildwood gives you that choice. You can live out in Ward 1, Ward 6, have some land, or if you want more of that, town center feeling, you can be right here. And there's a bit of a life cycle when it comes to the way people are. We're seeing that here. I can tell you from a Ward 8 perspective, there are people that come from some of the other parts of Wildwood because they want to downsize. They're getting older, but they don't want to leave Wildwood. They purposely will say that I don't want to go to Chesterfield. I don't want to go to Eureka. I want to stay in Wildwood. My kids are here, etc. So, the reputation, I think, is a big piece. The other thing, too, I just want to highlight is that from an economics perspective, we have to further build out the ecosystem here within our city. We've got businesses. But, you know, when you look at, as an example, if you just go down the road, Manchester, that is a healthy ecosystem. It's bringing in people that go to the dry cleaner, people that go get their car washed, people that are going to run to the bank. They're coming for multiple reasons. So the more that we can do to build that in the town center here, more people have reasons to come and shop and stay in Wildwood. So on that segues into my last point here. You know, when Wildwood was incorporated, I wasn't around, but I think there was a vision, right? There was a vision with town center of what it would look like. And maybe we need to bring that image back. Maybe we need to bring a what if we can get town center where it is, because I think when people can see a prototype of here's a town center with shops along, and we're talking about the small kinds of shops that we have, you know, boutique type stores, filled, people walking out from the movie theater, going to eat at a restaurant, stopping in for ice cream afterwards. You can really come and, what do we say? Come to eat, shop, have fun in Wildwood. You know, we need to bring that dream back, that vision, because if we don't, then people, I don't think will ever see the potential that we have in our city. And maybe that's some kind of marketing thing we could do. Enough of, you've heard enough of me, but I have a lot and I just wanted to get it out.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, I have one more comment. Also said on the Town Center Update Committee, and by areas, the Town Center Update Committee came up with the different types of businesses that they thought that might work in different areas of town center. Town center is much bigger than where we're sitting. And so that might be something that we might want to take a look at as a group.
Sure, absolutely. Councilmember Hopper.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it seems like we're having a lot of people are pulling out like, oh, we have this resource here that has this information, and oh, we have this here, and we have this here. It's like, what? We have all this stuff. I feel like we have 85% of a plan that's been put together already, but it's been lost in the shuffle to everywhere. So is there, I guess I would say, is there a way that we can try to find some things to consolidate the stuff back together to get retargeted? Unfortunately, Mr. Cross, that might fall a little on you, so I apologize, but that's like, you know, can we, is there a way to get some of these things and ideas that I put together that probably were all really, really good ideas at the time, and they've been lost in the shuffle of here's this goal and here's this thing and this situation came up. Can we get back a little to the fundamentals and try to figure out what the way forward is?
Well, fortunately, Mr. Hopper, I have a new employee that I can delegate this to. So your point is well taken, Mr. Chair, with your permission.
Yes, absolutely.
I think we did lose our way a little bit. If you want complete honesty, I think that, but again, I am re-energized about the direction of this committee. And so, yes, we can pull that stuff out. And again, I think with this collaboration between this committee and then with Tom and myself, I think we can flesh that stuff out and really get a good path forward. I did want to circle back to something that Ms. Dodwell brought up earlier because it was under her tutelage of this committee when she chaired this committee about bringing businesses to that. And I'd like to expand that a little bit, or at least throw the idea out anyway, as part of the consideration of what we do. Ms. Dodwell mentioned that we did bring in people one at a time. Okay, so we brought in, somebody from, the restaurant, maybe it was, Big Chief, and then we brought in, Doug Fick or Zick, and that sort of thing. What if we had an economic roundtable, on a Saturday or something like that, and we brought, 20 people in at the same time? and various folks. And then we spend 2 hours or whatever that we want to do and find out from everyone and let them, because when you got more people, then they're playing off each other, just like we're doing tonight. Okay. Instead of just getting one perspective, now we got everybody. And then somebody goes, oh yeah, well, that's great. And do that. Why don't we do that? Like once a month, once a quarter, whatever, something like that. But I mean, let's bring people in that are here in Wildwood and hear from everybody. Okay. Not only, what's working or what's not working, but also somebody says, well, you know what, if you brought in this type of business, man, that would be ancillary to what I'm doing. And then, 2 + 2 = 5. And we start getting into that kind of synergy. So, I mean, I'm Thomas and poor Thomas, I just, getting all kinds of stuff, but I mean, we'll do all the heavy lifting. We'll get the business. We'll, with your help, develop an agenda, we'll run the meeting or whatever. And so you guys can ask the questions or whatever, but we ought to do more listening than talking, quite honestly. But I mean, we've got some really, really, really smart business owners that we're not leveraging, getting that information from them. So just a suggestion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So the 4 points that,
One thing real quick.
absolutely.
I'm just going to jump onto that at what Mr. Cross just said, and maybe an idea would be, depending on interest, as a way of garnering that up is, again, not instead of having one-on-one, but maybe go by, kind of industry. So let's bring in everyone, all restaurant owners can come in and sort of have a similar industry conversation of what issues and concerns are most important to trying to run a restaurant in Wildwood versus the boutique shops. What do they run into? Being able to focus more on their specific concerns rather than a bunch of people at once, because you may get, somebody from, Heels comes in and is like, I have lots of questions. I have these issues, but we got 3 restaurants that came in and they just monopolized the whole conversation. Right. And then that we don't get those similar points of view. So I think if we had enough interest from business owners to come in where we could have a few from each industry, maybe having them separated out, especially maybe even at first, to say what affects you as a restaurant owner, not just a business owner in Wildwood, might be able to keep the conversation much more specific and on target and flesh out a little more of those hurdles that they're trying to overcome, just as an additional idea to that.
Thank you.
Mike.
Councilmember Dodwell.
That's a pretty good idea because 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whenever Julian first got here, one of the first things he did was call together a group of businesses, but it was a broad group from different types of businesses, and certain individuals monopolized the conversation, and he at least got interaction with them, and several of us council members on that committee went to the same meeting, and we all learned things, but it was, as you say, very, very difficult for people of a different type of business to perhaps put their major issues out on the
It
table.
helps us target specific industries that maybe we want to target to get more of.
Yeah.
Now we know what issues those are like face, address those more specifically. Overall business concerns. Now we have like, okay, we love it. CPA firms here, that is, when we know, okay, these are the hurdles they run into. Not attracted to them to come here because of the we know. Right now we have a specific target list of things.
Thank you. So one of the things I was going to mention is the 4 points that Councilmember Garitano brought up in the beginning. I'm glad you reminded the committee of those points because it's been a long time since I've seen those. And for those of us who are relatively new, it's a good reminder to go back and take a look at those. And I believe, unless somebody feels differently, it looks like those would provide us with some guideposts for some of our activities going forward. So we will get those out to all the committee members. Some of you have probably already seen them and may be quite familiar with them, but some of us may not. So we'll get those out. And Councilmember Garitano, did you have a follow-up?
No.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. any other discussion at this point in time? It's been a good discussion. We've got some good points here, some things that I think we can act on going forward. After tonight's meeting, I will get with the city administrator and we'll talk about putting down some things that are concrete so that we can begin to make some progress at the next meeting when it comes up. So unless there's any other discussion at this point in time on the goals for this committee, the next item up for discussion would be dates, times, and locations of future EDC meetings. So I have had a discussion and reviewed the schedule going through June and July with the city administrator. There doesn't appear to be any dates available where we can have a meeting in June or July. So it looks like our next meeting would be in August, which was previously scheduled. But that, I guess, leads us into a discussion of what do we want to do going forward regarding the scheduling of these meetings so that we can avoid what we're facing right now, which is 2 months where we will not be able to have any meeting. So one of the things to do would be to take a look at moving the schedule of these meetings up earlier in the month for second or third week, which right now with the schedule that we have throughout the remainder of the year probably is not possible. But it may be something that we can take a look at doing first of next year. City Administrator Cross.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to be able to give a little backstory or a little explain why that situation exists in the summer months. For those of you who have been on council for a while, you'll recall that the council passed an ordinance a couple of years ago that the last week of the months of June, July, and August would be designated as a no meeting week. One of the members from your ward, Mr. Chair, brought that forth, and the council agreed with it. And it gives a little bit of a break to everyone. It's not just about staff; it's about council members too, because council members go on vacation, council members have family things, and it was an opportunity to take a break. And the last week of the month, those 3 months were designated as such. The problem came into play is, which has now been resolved, is that there was still the council meeting that was on that Monday. Because as you know, the council was meeting the second and fourth Mondays. That's been changed now, and that was part of the mayor's decision, and you all supported that, which was to eliminate that second meeting, and so to have one meeting a month. So we truly have a no meeting week in those months. But yes, it does. I guess in regards to this committee, since it meets the fourth Tuesday of the month, it's problematic. But again, I just want to make sure that everybody understands the purpose of that, so that and we have a city calendar that has been prepared. It is published. It is voted on at council, and so that gets put in place, and that's the city council. That is the council meeting schedule that then everyone can plan on. Everybody, folks that take minutes, and council members and staff, everybody can plan their vacations around those dates and so forth. So moving into another week defeats the purpose of the whole reason of doing that. If you try to put another, there are some of us that, me in particular, quite honestly, but this is not about me, so don't please misunderstand, but I attend every meeting, every committee meeting. And so I'm in meetings quite a bit during the week, but there's others that are doing that, from taking minutes or attending. So, we have a lot of committees and we have a lot of meetings. And so I fully support what was proposed 2 years ago and what the council approved. So I would just be careful, or I'd ask, maybe that's the better way of just say, instead of, if there's an opportunity where there's, you say, well, there's a free Monday or free Wednesday or something like that. But, now you've put that does create somewhat of a burden. So Now, if another committee says I'm willing to give up my slot, we won't meet that month and do a switch. But if there is a desire on the part of this committee to actually, on a permanent basis, change from meeting on the fourth week, then that's something that the council would address. I mean, we put that together, and then that would be voted on, and that would be, put in place for 2023. To do that switch now, after mid-year might be difficult, but that's something ultimately that the entire council has to weigh in on, not just this committee. So I wanted to give a little bit of a history for those of you who might not have been around when this thing was put into place and the reasons why we did that, or why the council did that, I should say.
Thank you. Councilmember Garitano.
Yeah, and hearing that, we definitely don't want to add on, with the shift. And the problem with our committee, specifically June, July, and August, because it's when that resolution takes effect that there's no meetings on the fourth week. So Scott had mentioned to me the dilemma that he had, and Don, maybe this is something to think about with planning and parks. And I still have to have the discussion with Steve Cross. We have to look at how we can plan. But, if I was thinking of a compromise that we don't add, an additional or, meeting that June, July, and August with the fourth week, then moving it around. But if we could make it work like in admin public works, and Steve and I talked about this, was it like yesterday or Friday? And we can plan ahead and we can forego 1 month, then that would be a slot that this committee can take. And then their net does not change, the net number of meetings, because we're just shifting it up, and admin has now only 11 meetings a month. And that would be one instance. And maybe planning parts can do that in August, let's say. And therefore, at the end of the year, every committee is only met really 11 times versus the 12, and we all kind of, help each other out. I mean, that was just a compromise that I thought, without creating or taking away the reason for the fourth week. It's just that this committee would have to be okay with then taking that slot. And we're going to talk, because we have to plan for admin public works June meeting. And so therefore we can look at what potential agenda items we are thinking of for July. And if we can move those either to June or push them to August, then we can make July work, and then the admin public works committee won't meet in July. And that's one trade-off right there. And then maybe that's an option too that could be done. Planning and parks, Don might have different thoughts, but I'm just trying to see how we can help each other out.
Thank you. Councilmember Dodwell.
I'd also like to make sure that during that 2023 scheduling process, if we can have 1 week a month somehow, I know some months are a little shorter than others, where there are no meetings, where staff and everyone is able to catch up on what they've done throughout the prior 4 weeks or whatever. I don't know how we can work that, but it's just a suggestion. If there's some way we can look at the calendar a little differently so that economic development doesn't require you guys to be here on that 5th week period. I'd rather run the bus with 4 wheels instead of 5.
City Administrator Cross.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Another possibility yet this year, it appears, and I don't know if any of you folks sit on the Watershed Erosion Task Force, but if you do, you know that we are moving to meeting less frequently. A lot of the heavy lifting has been done. Right now, quite honestly, it is a matter of funding. Okay, either from Jefferson City or from Washington, D.C. But there's, instead of rehashing the same thing each and every month, so the watershed erosion task force meeting for, I guess this month is canceled. So there's a chance that there's a slot there, again. And I think some of the committees are finding that, we took planning and zoning. I questioned that when I came back the second time around and said, why are we meeting twice a month? And I asked our director and he didn't have a good reason. I asked the mayor and he didn't have a good reason. And the mayor said, okay, fine. So we planning and zoning meets instead of the first and third Mondays, it meets the first Monday and that's it. Thing. Some of those meetings get rather long, but that's okay. But we freed up a day. And all of you from Mr. Bartoni, Mr. Onberg, Mr. Gaetano, getting much better in running meetings. They are efficient. They are quick. The mayor has led the charge there. We are having speed council meetings now, and that's a good thing. We get a lot of work done, and you all are to be applauded for that. So I think, it may find as we go along that, we don't necessarily have to meet every week. So it's up to the individual committees and so forth. But I think we're getting better. I will tell you that, and the staff certainly appreciates it because we're not here until 10, 11 o'clock. And I know that you all, because you guys worked hard during the day too. So this is good for everybody. So I'd say let's keep moving in that direction and we get our work done and then we go home and then just get up and start over the next day. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Hopper.
If I could just, I think as a little bit of suggestion on this, time wise, I think it's, we're at a good timing as there is some information that needs to be gathered on the end of City Administrator Cross and also, onboarding a brand new person as well. That's going to be very crucial to this committee and gathering the information that we have talked about that exists, but is not in front of us. I would say maybe it's not the worst time that we have a little gap in meetings to get that together so we can more effectively figure out what the path forward is. And then the conversation then becomes as we come back and start talking at 2023 and saying, okay, as we're building that schedule and that calendar, let's look at how do we trade things off as to dig into City Administrator Cross's point of trying to take this meeting and then just move it to an entirely different week for the whole year. So we can skip these three, so we can make these 3 months work. I think that's a lot of maybe an extra undue work and stress to try to coordinate all those things where maybe we can just find a mitigating resource to make that work on those few months. And we can plan that into the 2023 calendar and make up for it without having to shift everything around.
So our next regularly scheduled meeting is for August. So would your suggestion be that we just go ahead and use this interim period between now and August?
Yeah, I would say we run with that. That gives that, and obviously we can still communicate through email and things like that as information is put together. And like I said, City Administrator Cross is able to take the different pieces that we have and send those through. So as we come back in the meeting in August, ideally we will be much better informed around things from the master plan, things that have been stated before about, goals and ideas around this committee, that we would have a chance to review those. And then when we come back in August, we would be much better prepared to say, okay, these really are the goals. These are the guidelines. This is the direction we want to move forward and put us in a really good place to hit the ground running in August, as opposed to circling back to a conversation where it's great. Now we've got 50% of the information. Let's talk around it again until we know more. We'll have already known more and we can really get it going.
So this may be not proper parliamentary procedure, but just a quick informal poll here. What do the other council members think about that idea?
If it's okay, if I could speak,
Absolutely, yeah.
if we do go down that path, maybe we give this committee some homework. And once we get those goals out to everyone, maybe we can send over some type of activities that would be in support of those goals.
Sure.
And then you'll compile them and, either you can send them back out to the committee and we can then prioritize or rank them so that at least when we come back, we already know what's up at the top. Yeah. And we can kind of hit the ground running more, and try to get that part done.
Okay, so in
just a
conjunction,
suggestion here, maybe somebody else might.
What I would recommend too. We would have to come back to we know, we've thought, we've absorbed, digested.
Mhm.
Let's come into a meeting and go like, hey, here's this, we can go do.
Mhm.
We can actually take action in August.
I think we would just have to be very cautious. We can't conduct business over email. But if you're just
Right.
getting, like, you're just collecting information,
We
and
can
then we'll
disseminate
have that
information.
discussion when we
Yeah.
meet. Then we're
Disseminate
good.
Information and share ideas.
Just send them back. We can't
Sure.
debate them over email.
Okay, Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea and a great plan. So we discussed a little bit earlier about having residents and business representative on our committee. So is that something we can put on the agenda in August? Or if we're going to be doing homework, is that something that we can put on the table now? But we're going to have council's approval to do that.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Absolutely.
So a couple of things, if we want to address the goals of the committee, what I would ask is a motion and a second and a voice vote of, if, for instance, if someone wanted to make a motion to have the committee develop, either 5 short-term, you send out to the committee some things, so give folks time to digest that or come up with their own goals. I'm happy, and they send them to me. I'm happy to summarize them and say, this is what you all came up with in terms of goals. I'd keep it. Let's not do 25 each, but maybe 3 short-term, 3 long-term, however you all would like to do it. But I'm more than happy to summarize it and send it out to folks so that they can look at it, digest it, and be ready to come to the August meeting with what feedback you all had. With regards to changing the composition, this is one of 3 standing committees. So Ms. McCutcheon is absolutely right. This will have to be done at committee level. I'm sorry, at council level. If you all were serious about actually changing the composition, because right now it calls for 8 council members that make up this committee, and that would require a change to a resolution ordinance. But it will require a change by council.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Number 1, we've got our core goals that are coming from the master plan. So I just want to make sure that as we're thinking of things that we want to add to our things to do, that we figure out how they relate to those 4 goals. And then number 2, what if we had Thomas, the new person, individually meet with each of us over the next couple of months as he's getting in? Does that make sense? Or is that too funky? Okay, that's fine. I just throw things out. And then lastly, I really appreciate you identifying, let's put something on the table that we need to work towards in our downtime.
Councilmember Hopper.
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
So I guess maybe just realigning a little bit of what we were kind of talking about with the homework and coming up with goals. I think a piece of that where I was kind of thinking is we've had things like the 4 goals already in the master plan. I forget now 100% what you had referred to earlier that said we needed to find it. And
I found it already and sent it to the chair.
so I guess for me, rather than us coming together with a list of goals and compiling it together, was compiling what's already been created and is out there and getting that out to the committee. So then we're able to actually read through that, digest it. Then we're able to come back in the first meeting in August and say, yes, after reviewing the goals, after reviewing the tools and the things that have already been decided, have already been established, this is now what we think our guide rails should be to meet these goals. The goals are already there. Are they, if they're already there and established, let's just use those as the bullseye and let's head towards it. But we just need to figure out what the lanes are to get there. And I think just having these months to give you an opportunity and terrible names, Thomas, thank you very much. The opportunity to compile that together and put it into almost a, one document, one place that would be stored. So then we can all review it easily and then come back in with a clear understanding of a refocus of where we need to be headed. I think that would probably be a very efficient way for us to have that conversation when we come back than us kind of all stabbing in the dark at ideas of goals, and a lot of that's already taken care of. So
I will send those 4 points out to you tonight. Councilmember Bartone.
So going back to what Deborah was recommending on the composition of the committee itself. So, I mean, Steve can correct me if I'm wrong here, but this committee can make that recommendation to the council at any time. So if that's the desire of the committee, we need to add that to an agenda item. It needs to be an item on an agenda that we can discuss here. And then we can decide how the composition should be. And then we take that to council. So we don't start with council and ask them, we can do that ourselves.
Right.
So if that is, and I don't disagree with Deborah's recommendation that we discuss it, and how it lands. I mean, that's, who knows at this point, but that can just be added to the next agenda. We can discuss it. Steve's input, Thomas's input, and then we go to the council with a recommendation on how the composition needs to look like in the future.
That will be an agenda item for the next meeting. Absolutely.
And it doesn't need to be decided at the next meeting. It just needs to
Right.
be on the agenda.
Yeah.
We just need it on the agenda so we can discuss it.
Correct.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Can I-
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, so Steve, you might want to look into this a little bit because it might need, I don't know if it needs a master plan change or just a resolution because it's stated in the charter. So you might want to check that out.
It's, if I could, just for information, it's in the code of the city, section
It's in the
110.25. It's spelled out specifically along with the 3 standing committees. So there's going to have to be an amendment to the ordinance calling out, in my opinion, we'll have to confirm
Yeah.
that with John Young. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's in the charter as well, so.
All right. Thank you. Good discussion. That takes us through the ready for action items. This brings us down to the not ready for action review of city business list serve.
Mr. Chair, what that is just a listing of all the businesses in Wildwood
Okay.
and who we reach out to. So, and right now we have something in the neighborhood of 270 businesses in Wildwood. That'll be, I've already had the deputy city clerk who maintains our business licenses, matching that up with this, and that'll be something else that I'll have Thomas involved in. But I want to match up and see if there's any holes, and update. There's just a lot of things that we need to do. I need to update the website and get the businesses and that sort of thing. But that's what that item is, and that's just making sure that we've got a current contact information for every business that is operating, and that's why I want to align that with the business licenses, because the two ought to be virtually identical.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate the explanation for that. And I noticed looking on the city's website at the list of businesses that, for example, Papa Murphy's is still listed as a business here in Wildwood. So looks like a little bit of updating is in order.
One of the beauties of Thomas is that he has a very, very strong IT background and has maintained websites and so forth. So he checked all the boxes for me, and ultimately my job was to hire the best person for the city, and I believe I've done that.
Perfect. Thank you. Next item, potential city to business newsletter. So City Administrator Cross, I think you added that.
Actually, I did not, Mr. Chair. I don't know where that came from. That's been on the agenda for quite some time. That it would be something that would be a discussion item that would get moved up to for action or for information for this committee to discuss what that is, because I don't know who suggested it sometime in the past and what that means. And is it something that we still want to consider? That's all I can add to it.
Okay.
Maybe
All right,
Ms.
thank you.
Dodwell could add more to it, perhaps.
And then the last item is the update to the economic development guide.
That will definitely be something, Mr. Chair, that Thomas Lee will get involved in. I did have, when I hired a consultant to kind of take a look at things that we were doing, that document, there's a lot of good information in there. There's a lot of information in there that is just doesn't need to be in there. So I want another set of eyes on that. So it's just not a matter of taking this document that is that thick and then just simply updating the information in there. That's not what we want to do. We want to take just a fresh look. It's 5 years old, 6 years old. And what was true then is not necessarily true now. And that document was developed by an outside consultant with the, and a lot of input, certainly from the committee and so forth. But this is a great opportunity to take a fresh look at that and keep what we think is important, keep the metrics that we think are important. But there's a whole lot of stuff in there that is just, at least in my opinion, doesn't need to be in there. So, but that is one of the first things that I will have Mr. Lee looking at.
Absolutely.
Just so everyone knows, that was done by the subcommittee for economic development before we put together any kind of economic development job description or anything else. I wasn't on the committee at that point, but if you would talk to Dave Bertolino, who was on it, he would definitely tell you that that was a first stab of something that they were not really extremely excited about, but it gave them, as you said, some guardrails to say, where do we need to go from here, kind of thing. So take it with a grain of salt.
Thank you. That brings us to other business news and updates. Okay, just a little reminder, the next Economic Development Committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, August the 23rd at 6 p.m. If there are no other issues or items for discussion, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, before you entertain that motion, one thing that this committee did not discuss is how you want to meet. Do you want to continue to have these as hybrid meetings or Zoom? 8:23 at 6 p.m. Is it? Are we going? Is the committee want to continue in this format or what? I'd like to just make sure that everybody's on the same page there.
So that is a good question. What does the informal poll of the committee? What do you think?
I like in person.
All right, so the consensus seems to be in person.
I will. Can I make one other
Absolutely.
statement? I will make a volunteer statement that if you need an extra person to set up the web link, etc.
We are training. So we have Travis, we have Michelle learning. We have Tracy, I think will learn. Thomas will learn. Thomas, actually, my plan is he's going to handle the council meetings. It is good for him to be at those council meetings and he will, so I'm going to give Travis a break so that he doesn't have to be here on a Monday night. So I'm going to assign that to Thomas, just as Julian did when he was there. So that's a great offer and thank you very much. But we actually have we're going to have 4 or 5 people trained to do that so that Travis doesn't have to do it because hybrid meetings can only be held here right now. I need to figure out a way to make that room do what we do in here. And that's very difficult and probably very expensive. So, well, I mean, there's all this kind of stuff and I don't know. I have to find out. I've got to get with Tech Electronics and just kind of relook at that. The speaker, the sound system in there is nothing like we have here. We don't have microphones. We have 4 hanging down. So that's why the coffees with the mayor, we have to have an external speaker that Travis has to come in the first Thursday of every month. It's 6:45 or so to get set up. It's somewhat of a problem. So for right now, but I don't know if, I mean, it's nice when you're facing, but this.
Let's look at that for next year's budget.
So for now, but again, let's go back. Your offer to help. Thank you very much. That is very, very generous of you. But we've we're training the staff to do it.
Yeah, I would say just agreeing with her. I'm good with in person as well. I think hybrid's great. I hate staring down a straight row of people trying to have a conversation. It
Yeah, I do
just-
too.
It drives me crazy.
Mhm.
Then I feel like I can talk to two people and that's about it.
Yeah.
Get what I'm saying down here, so
Thank you.
something a little more conducive to a group conversation would be nice, but it is what it is for the time being. Yeah,
It would be great to get back in the community room. There's just a different vibe, a feeling when you're around the table. It's
Mhm.
more casual, just, it definitely is a good experience if we can get there someday.
All right, very,
One more quick.
absolutely.
So Steve, we used to have meetings and then we used to have them live stream. So what, something happened to the equipment?
Sorry. I need to get back into that and find out. Travis, if you have any, feel free to weigh in here because some of this starts to get beyond mine, but that room, again, I think the biggest issue is the audio. I don't think it's so much the video, but Travis, help me because I'm a little.
I agree with Steve. It has a lot to do with those microphones not being of high quality. It also has to do with the way that we live stream the meeting, which is through a driver on this computer through Zoom, then to YouTube. So we've got to get a setup like this in that room. So just more
But
research.
again, we'll bring in Tech Electronics who kind of set this room up. We have some things that we want to improve here. We're working on changing certain things, which will change this. And because there's wires that are going under the ground and coming up, and then they're going to the back room and going to equipment and stuff. So we have some work to do with that community room. Yes, ma'am.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Councilmember Dodwell, second. Motion is non-debatable. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all.